Okay, welcome everybody. This is Dr. Eric Woodroof. Great to be here with you today. We're going to be doing just a very quick review. When I say quick, no longer than, I'm not going to talk for more than 30 minutes, hopefully, and then we're going to do Q&A. But very, very quick review of what happened in 2011 and what we think might happen in 2012. Again, this is just my perspective as I've traveled the globe this last 14 months, been on almost every continent, and I'm just happy to share this information with you. Take what you like. I have no attachment to my opinion, so just take what you like, and if you don't agree, that's okay. You don't need to send me an email afterwards. That's fine. Many of you I know already, and I can see that there are people who literally are staying up. It's midnight in Hong Kong right now. We've got people in South Africa. We have people from the Middle East, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates. We have people from South America. I don't think the Aussies are here. They might be. I just didn't notice them on the list. But for them, it'd be very early in the morning. So with that, great to be here with you. Some of you may not know who I am. I'm the president of the Association of Energy Engineers, which is in about 84 countries. I've been the chairman of the board of the Carbon Reduction Manager Program, and we've been taking that program all over the world. I've been on the CEM certification board since 1999. I've got a few clients there listed, some others that are on this call that we don't have listed. I'm not trying to show favoritism or anything. It's just an old slide. And I've written some books and like to sail and do water sports. Enough about me. The association is, as I said, got an excellent website. If you haven't been there, if you're not a member, you might take a look at that. Tremendous amount of resources there, and we'll be going to that website later on because some of the questions related to some of the resources. But I'll tell you, if you haven't been there lately, click on some of the videos. You can learn about AEE. You can see some of the new videos we developed at the World Energy Congress in Chicago that we're focused on attracting more young people to the industry. We've got a big problem in this industry that probably about 35% of the industry is going to be retiring in the next 8 years, so we need more young talent, and I'm 42, and I'm talking, we need 20-year-olds who think totally different, who can come up with new solutions to some of the problems we have. So anyway, the association has some great information there for you. Now, hopefully the slides are advancing for you. It looks like they are, and what I want to just focus on the agenda today is I like to run my webinars very interactive. I've sat in on many webinars, and I know that it's very easy to fall asleep. So we're going to be trying to make this very interactive for you. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of world tour and ask some Q&A from you to keep you engaged while I explain some trends that I have seen with my own two eyes. Then I'll talk about the state of the industry, again, my opinion only, and then we'll do Q&A, which you're free to ask my opinion. My opinion is based on interviews with probably 5,000 people we did seminars with last year, and then some webinars and some other just general travel, which hopefully you'll find a little entertaining. But if you don't like my opinion, that's okay too. I, again, have no attachment to that, but I have seen a lot of things, and I want to bring that to you, which is it's helpful for some of you who weren't able to go to the World Energy Congress or some other events that have happened. You can tap into this and get a quick download, at least of one perspective. Now, this is some of the interesting places we've been this year, just in the CEM and carbon programs alone. This top one here on the left is one of the larger CEM classes we had this year. I think it was over 100. We've launched the CEM program in Taiwan this year, as well as several other countries, South America down here to the right. We did a carbon course last October in South Africa, and as you can tell, we have a lot of fun there. It's not as rigorous as the CEM program for all those CEMs out there but it does involve a 4-hour test, and most of these people, as well as most carbon people, are there for 3.5 hours. So it is strenuous, although we do try to have some fun. Now, I'd like to ask you to participate by typing in where you see where you think these places are, and the first one is up on the list. So I'm curious if anyone can guess this. And some of you are guessing, and I'm interested. Some Boston, Bangkok. I'm just reading these off because this will keep you guys entertained. Philadelphia, Chicago, New Jersey, a lot of New York, a lot of places in the United States. But let me tell you, this is actually in South America. This is in Santiago. Santiago, Chile has a lot of really amazing buildings, architecture that you wouldn't expect there. A lot of these buildings had all LED lighting already, and they were built 3 years ago. Some of them are still under construction, as you can see, but a lot of them have very advanced designs as far as atriums and heat recovery, phase change materials, etc. So I was there about 3 weeks ago, took this picture. There's there was a soccer field in the foreground, which is kind of a clue, but you probably can't see that. So anyway, just wanted to share with you that's kind of an interesting thing. If you can guess this one, I'll be very impressed, but it's a little easier than the last one. I'm interested to see what you guys think. So we have people guessing Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. This is actually Jordan. We launched the carbon and CEM programs in Jordan, and I found this picture when we were driving to Petra. On the way back, we were able to see this camel on the back of this truck, which I thought was very entertaining. Anyway, and someone says it's not Vermont, so that's great. How about this one? Someone guessed exactly right. We've got UAE, Hong Kong, Rio, Singapore, Dubai, Mexico, China, and Hong Kong. This is Hong Kong, but on the border of Hong Kong and Shenzhen. And what I want to point out in this particular slide, I'm not just showing these as pretty pictures, but I'm showing some of these for a reason, is that each one of these buildings is about 65 stories tall. And a lot of them are apartment buildings. And they are essentially, many of them located right near a metro station. So what you have is a very, very efficient way for people to get around. And that's kind of neat to see because, as far as energy efficiency, it's a lot easier. And I apologize, I took this picture from a train that was going about 60 miles an hour. But this train will take you to the Hong Kong airport in about 22 minutes from downtown. It is the fastest and cheapest way to get from the airport to the downtown. You wouldn't even want to take a car, although the traffic here is looking pretty good. But generally, it's faster, easier, cheaper. And it's just an example of some countries that around the world, very, very efficient systems. These subway trains come depending on which ones, 5 minutes, but many ones downtown come within every minute. There's a new station, a new train pulling into the station. And that's just an ability to move people very fast, very efficiently, elevators, escalators going twice speed. So you see a lot of things there that are very interesting, and I just want to share that with you because I think it's kind of fun. Now, we do have some fun on some of our different places that we do go, and I just want to share with you, it's not all business. We've gone sailing in California. This is friends and partners in South Africa who are doing some wonderful things down there. And this is the Hong Kong chapter after a meeting we had there, a business meeting. So it's not all work, and we do have some fun. And I encourage you, if you're not having fun in your career, then you might need to think about changing your friends or changing your career. So back to business. I'd like to point out and review some of the things that happened at the World Energy Engineering Congress. Now, this is basically the Congress. The big draw for someone to go to one of these shows would be to hit the expo and to see and feel and touch all these different technologies. You could see all the different kinds of lighting technology or waste heat recovery technology or solar technology. There's a ton of award ceremonies. This particular award we're giving to some young men from the Middle East who have done some fantastic things in energy management. Of course, T. Boone Pickens was there, a fantastic opportunity to get his perspective, kind of an oil man turned natural gas man with somewhat of a green agenda, but very much an energy independence agenda, I can say that for sure. And then you have the general sessions and the banquets, which are always fun. But if you go to one of these events, you really can get a sense of what's going on very quickly. There's a lot of people from all over the world, and you really get that opportunity to get a sense of what's going on. And Alexandra Cousteau was also there, which is really quite an honor to hear her speak as well. Now, next year's World Energy Congress is going to be in Atlanta, and again, this is just the variety of things in the expo, which you can see. And then if you want to go to the conference sessions, that's a separate issue, but you can go to the expo, I think, for free or extremely inexpensive and touch all this stuff and see and learn, and it's just a great opportunity. But next year's conference, I will like to mention, that's just been announced, that Colin Powell will be the keynote speaker. So that's kind of exciting, and again, I encourage you to try to get engaged with that. If you can't, we may, the next president, Gary Hogsett, may decide to do some type of year-end review or some type of review, or that may be written about what happened at the conference. But when you're there, you get the information right away, and it's very useful. Some of the things I want to talk about, moving into the global trends here, of why most of you are here. I'm a little disappointed that energy management isn't really hitting the headlines when you look at energy headlines, or just headlines in general. The economy and politics tend to dominate the discussion in the United States. We have a tremendous amount of biased information. You don't really know who to trust, and that's just the nature of the beast. There's a lot of opinions out there. But what I'm also frustrated with, and again, we do so many great things. All of you are so many very doing wonderful things around the world. But really, we need to do more because, especially in the United States, I would comment that I feel after traveling to many places, we have a very reactive energy policy. We are basically not really setting a plan, as T. Boone Pickens would say. We're not really establishing, serious goals, unless you're in the federal government or some subsector. But as an overall country, we are a little behind, to be honest, compared to some other countries and what they're doing. We are doing many great things, and there's a lot of innovation there, but I will acknowledge that our policy is somewhat reactive. And when you look at some of the dollars that are spent, this is just headlines I happened to pull off yesterday, which have one of my clients in the news, but you notice that there's a lot of money being spent not really on things that are going to make us more energy efficient or more cost competitive from an industry standpoint, or environmentally friendly. And those are things that I want to talk a little more about later on. But anyway, what I'm frustrated with in the U.S. is, I don't foresee any legislative action from the United States in the next 1 or 2 years as far as moving forward on the energy front, energy policy, setting new guidelines, et cetera. I mean, major policies. I just don't see it. I don't see anything happening in climate, which is kind of sad because, especially on the energy efficiency side, there's so much opportunity and money and the opportunity to get really, really good returns. On the environmental side, I'd say a trend, and just acknowledging that energy is a tough challenge. We do need new gas. Natural gas does have a less carbon footprint than some of the other coal-fired technologies we have. But some of these new technologies, new exploration methods, do pretty likely have some pretty significant environmental benefits. It's in a debate, and there's a lot of discussion about that. But I will acknowledge that some of these things have a pretty good risk for some environmental impacts, and we don't know yet. I've read the Wall Street Journal this week, and you can, again, get opinions there. But I will say that delay in energy efficiency is going to cause more pollution, which is going to be needed to be cleaned up. It is going to impact demand as well as energy prices. And if you're not believing this yet, I can tell you that your solutions as an energy manager are extremely valuable because all of these things impact energy prices. And if energy prices are more expensive, your job, your work that you do in saving energy is much more valuable, and your job is secure, I would say that. Now, the Energy Information Agency expects demand for energy, KW, et cetera, to be up by 33% within 25 years. That is going to force us into a position where we probably have to do some of these things, gas fracking and tar sands. And this is in a picture of just one person in Wyoming whose, tap water is not exactly clear. And this pretty much happened in correlation with a fracking incident. So can't say it's 100% proof, but these are things that need to be addressed. It costs money, and it's something that we will have to address. So energy demand is going up, and again, that really puts a lot of pressure on us to find these solutions that are pretty tough to solve. So that's another trend that I see. I can tell you other countries moving forward. This is South Africa again. This is Chile, and other countries have got an invitation to go to Bogota, Colombia last night, and we're going to be going to Dubai as well as Australia next year. And I can tell you, when you travel to other countries, climate change is not a debate in those other countries. It's not discussed on the news. Of course, they don't care what Kim Kardashian had for lunch either, so it's a whole different news thing, and I'm trying to weave some humor into this. But I can tell you there are things that are very exciting in energy, like Hong Kong is mandating basically all buildings in the city have to do energy audits. And the first wave of this is 40,000 buildings. There are only about 250 people qualified to do these energy audits at this time in Hong Kong. So if you're looking for a job, there are going to be positions in Hong Kong because this work has to get done by mandate by the country, and by also some of it is going to be funded. So there's going to be a lot of activity there. But you can look around the world. You can see energy chapters getting started in places that, South America is a growing economy. You're seeing things happen in the Middle East. You're seeing things happen in China. And of course, just more chapters in the United States. But all of these things demonstrate that some areas are advancing, and I would admit that some countries are advancing far faster as far as growth and interest in a lot of these subjects than the United States. So I like the United States. I live here. I like this country, but I'm acknowledging that we need to, if the U.S. needs to pick up the pace, we want to be competitive. Now, from another trend that I would say, coupling right into that, is that cost, competitiveness, image, and these kinds of things really require companies to take a proactive approach. And I don't just mean companies; that could mean any organization, like a university, these utilities, et cetera. They want to have that green image. Companies also that sell anything that has a lot of consumers touching it, like AT&T telephones or Apple computers or HP. All of these, consumer-oriented products are very interested in, appearing more green because that makes them sell more products. In fact, one of my clients recently, I won't tell you who it is, but they lost a $5 million contract because they were not as green, or at least perceived as green as their competitors. So a lot of this weaves into marketing, et cetera, and I would say that overall, U.S., worldwide, having a sustainability policy is pretty much a prerequisite these days for big business. Just like having a website, just like having a no harassment policy, these days in the news if you hear no hazing policy, but sustainability policy really falls today under the HR department as something that is a must-have if you want to attract the best people. And you really can't be the best business, you really can't be the best organization, unless you attract the best people. Now, I'm seeing some questions come in here. Is it greenwashing or green? And that's a great question. Green is a very subjective, vague term, which points back to other industry metrics which are a little more measurable. Like if you say you're energy net zero, that has a very specific meaning. If you say you're carbon neutral, or if you say you're landfill neutral, those things can be defined, measured, and verified. Where if you say, that can mean you painted your building green. So I think we all know that, and that's a constant debate. So that's kind of interesting. I will say the EPA and local states are getting more in the fight, although not to the level they probably need to be as far as regulations and expectations. Most utilities in the U.S. are increasing costs, and I can tell you that the EPA activities do increase the costs. I happen to live, our house is somewhat in the near a forest, and there's not far, maybe 7 miles, there's a coal-fired power plant. I can tell you that our electricity costs in this area of the country went up about 30% between 2010 and 2011, and many of the utilities that I consult for and do keynote speeches for all have commented their costs are going up 10%. Not necessarily from carbon regulation, but just overall cost, aging infrastructure, transmission lines that need to be updated, et cetera. And a large percentage of a utility's cost is transmission, so DG, distributed generation, like solar on your roof, or ground source heat pumps, or local waste-to-energy projects, or things that don't have to be transmitted a long distance electrically, have some extra value to the utility, and they're willing to pay money back to those technologies in the way of rebates more than you would expect. In Texas, if you weren't in a seminar, if you didn't know this, that I was able to get, I think, a 26% rebate from the utility, and it's a deregulated state. That utility was the poles and wires people. That was worth that for them to not have as much power running through their wires in the summer to give 26% rebates on solar systems. So very interesting, things that you might not expect, but definitely can help on the economics. So other things, I will comment a little bit about new markets like carbon. Some people, I know some of you do not like the carbon discussion, and I'm going to tell you that we're going to avoid that whole possible debate. We're going to just sidestep carbon altogether. I'm going to address it from a market standpoint and also focus on ways that we can agree, because we all should be getting more energy management projects based on the merits of the energy management projects. They save money. They are cost competitive. They help us, raise our rate of return. They help us with profit margin. They help our image, and they also help carbon. We don't have to agree on everything. We can agree on just a few, get more projects implemented, and still have the impacts and the environmental savings that we want. So we'll talk about that. But all of these things drive the activity with respect to energy management, and new markets are driving energy management activity. I can tell you I've done a few energy audits last year that were driven because of carbon legislation. So that's something that I could say directly benefited our company, but also we were, it saved a lot more money than it cost. But anyway, it all came from carbon. Now let me address another trend that this is a recent survey actually done through AEE at the World Energy Congress, asking which of the following do you see as key energy and facility issues, challenges next year. And what's interesting is, by far the biggest obstacle is lack of funds, upfront capital. And so I'm going to go back to this opportunity of abilities to finance types of projects. If we can finance projects, we can make things work. if you finance a project where the savings cash flow is greater than the financing cost, your payback is zero. Your payback's immediate. Your return is infinity if you can make these things finance. And often what's funny is that, if you look at most companies, and the next slide will show you that in a different survey in buildings.com, and I can see this take a minute for me to update. So here's this slide here that shows most of the customers out there are willing to fund a project if it has less than a 3-year payback. Okay. Now some want 5 years, 19% want 5. Will tolerate 5. 19% will tolerate 4. 30% will tolerate 3, and anything below that will also be tolerated. So if you can find projects that have a 30% return, which is highly doable in energy management, what you're offering the customer is the ability to give them a 30% return. If you can finance that, going back to the previous problem, if you can finance that at 10% or even 20%, you're still positive 10%. So this is something that makes a lot of sense to me, is that we need to do more integrated finance when we get these things done, because it's a net gain to the company. Plus, 30% is better than most of the companies are probably getting in their own profit of their own company. Not many companies are making 30% profit when you look at their 10K reports, or if you look at their overall earnings on Wall Street. So very interesting that we have a better solution than even entire companies. And why isn't this implemented is a mystery to me, but that's something that I think can be worked on as a trend. Also, energy projects have less risk than a lot of company projects. So these are things that I think are very, very exciting and need to be explored more, developed more in 2012. I know my company is going to be doing that. I know several companies I work with are going to be doing it. And I want to talk about just a quick example. I believe this gentleman is also on the call with us today. This is somewhat of an inspiring energy story. This guy has solar panels on his roof. This is in Texas, in a place where energy is very inexpensive. He has waste heat recovery off his air conditioning units, because they do have air conditioning in Texas. This heats his water for free for domestic hot water. He has a ground source heat pump, which he taps into. And if you went on to his website, which he's not selling anything other than a look at his system, and I met this guy by accident. He came to a party that we were having, and I'm just thrilled to meet him. But I talked about his system all over the world, and we logged in last couple weeks ago from Argentina, or wherever I was. And we tapped in as well from Ohio last week to look at what's going on in the system. But this is an example of just someone who's gone out and done something, a retired gentleman who's gone and done something. He was able to finance most of this at zero cost on the solar panels. Now, I'm sure the ground source heat pump costs some money, but overall, he is looking very good on the financing. And I want to point this out, that there are existing financial solution examples you can look to, like the solar PPA. If you don't know what that is, you can Google that. Or just go to California and listen to the radio, because you'll hear a commercial on the radio that'll say, we'll put solar on your roof for free. Companies will finance the whole package, because solar in Texas, I'll tell you, will be somewhere between a 12 and 15-year payback. It might not be very exciting. In fact, none of my industrial customers would entertain that kind of payback. But if you can finance it where it's cash flow neutral, and maybe get a 26% rebate from the utility, or do something like that, you really can change the game. And that's what's available in solar PPAs, et cetera. And that's just an example that I believe needs to be expanded greatly in 2012. And I'm really asking all of you to, if you believe that, go do that, because you'll make a lot of money and you'll save a lot of energy, and the world will be a better place if we can get more of these projects implemented. Ultimately, we do need to come up with more green generation, because we will run out of fossil fuels eventually, even if we choke on ourselves before then. So anyway, those are things that are kind of interesting. Other drivers I see in the marketplace, the metrics of looking at different universities or companies and how well they're doing on a green perspective. These are just websites you can punch in different universities and see how they're green. I did a sample of different places I've lived, and just to see how these ones different ranked, and it probably is geographically dependent. But overall, companies, universities as well as companies have this desire to appear greener than their competitors, because it means money to them. It means sales. It means customers. It means students. It means faculty. And all of this stuff is, very, very interesting. So things that this emotional or psychological driver will drive a lot of marketing activity, which will need to be backed up with solid energy management projects, which you guys can do. If you look at private sector, I'm not selling Coca-Cola here. I do like Coke Zero, but if you'll see Coca-Cola show up here, you'll see, or Pepsi, or any of these companies that have a big touch with custom consumers, go ahead and look at their website. You'll see what they're doing. It's quite impressive if you look at their website of things that they've moved to, sustainable packaging and other ways that they've tried to round out this sustainability image that they might want to have. And energy is a huge piece of this. So you guys are at the forefront, right on the front lines of that. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. Now, new markets, some of you may know this or not. Some of you are carbon graduates, I can tell. But if you look at the carbon growth, and this, again, I expect zero legislative growth in the United States in 2012 on the carbon piece. Zero. I don't expect. We can't even agree on how to balance the basic budget in Washington. So I see nothing. I have zero expectation there. But if you look at the carbon markets, and again, these are all voluntary markets, and this is just one trading platform in California, all the different projects they have going all over the United States. And this is 2010. If you look at 2011, which is the next slide, you'll notice there are more dots on the screen that you're seeing now to the one you just saw right there. There are more dots. There is more activity in this area, and carbon is highly linked to energy. If you can, as an energy manager, do a little research on the carbon side. Maybe, spend some time on some websites. We have some free articles and downloadable webinars, I believe, on our website that you can learn a little bit about this. If you can expand your knowledge in this area, it opens up a whole nother door of opportunities for you in the way of being someone who can talk the energy stuff, can talk the numbers, and then be able to be very valuable on the carbon stuff, because we need technically talented people in these markets. And again, these markets are growing right through the recession. If you look at the number of RECs and a number of carbon projects, they're all growing, even though there's no legislation, and even though carbon is somewhat still a debate whether it's important or not in the United States. All of this is voluntary growth. So there's enough people out there, I guess, who are pushing that market, and it is expanding. So I'm just noting the trend, not trying to provide too much commentary, but noting the trend that all of these things drive activity in the energy management industry. So just to review, we have economy and politics in the news all the time. It seems, in my opinion, if we could provide energy efficiency projects that have a higher return than what most companies can get, or for investors, better than what they can get on Wall Street. I'll tell you an innovative idea that a company had was, instead of having an employee stock option plan, they opened up their own energy fund. Offered it to employees where they could invest in their own energy fund. And then the employees were really, wanted to make sure the lights were turned off and all the other behavior factors that can drive energy performance. And this kind of idea is very interesting. They can get, the employee will get a 15% return. The company will get 15%. It's self-funding projects that earn maybe 30% return. Everybody's winning, maybe not the utility, but everyone's winning, and the employee feels good because he's, his risk is tied to something he might be able to control, which is, I don't know about you, but I don't feel like I have any control over Wall Street. So anyway, these are things, advantages we have to, I think, capitalize on in 2012. It is a tough challenge. Energy acknowledged. I mean, we have big needs, demand is growing, and we're going to have to find ways either to significantly reduce or find ways to make these other, development technologies environmentally friendly or environmentally tolerable. But again, a lot of debate about that. But all that is somewhat good because it draws attention to what you're trying to do. I would say cost competitive image, that is the thing you got to focus on, because the money is where it's at right now as far as the discussion point goes. And what I'm saying is that we need to focus on ways we can agree. We can focus on, I'm sorry there's a delay because we have people in India and it's just stretching out the time, but now you can see the screen. Focus on the ways to agree. If you're trying to sell projects, and all of you, if you've ever attended one of my courses, know that you're in sales, because everything you do has to be presented in a way that people understand. It has to be presented in a way that people can feel like they understand the benefits of your project as well as what problem it solves. And so we have a tremendous opportunity that energy management does save dollars, and often, as I said, a greater ROI than a company's opportunity. It has improved cost competitiveness, jobs, and most, as we've mentioned, have less than 3-year payback. We can do that. That's pretty neat. Improved green image, sales, students, clients, recruitment. And I want to talk about this other thing that I talked about with T-Boone on stage, is the move towards independent sustainability. That basically, we have a big issue in the United States where we have a lot of economic money going elsewhere. For example, and T. Boone pointed this out, and I was really surprised that I didn't know this, but in researching for my interview with him, I found that he had been talking about how much money we spend every month in foreign oil, and it's between 30 and 50 billion dollars every single month is going away overseas for foreign oil. And that's just a tremendous number when you consider, I mean, the Iraq War officially ended today, and we were spending about $10 billion a month on that, which got a whole lot more news than the fact that we're spending $40 billion a month on raw purchases of foreign oil. So, this tar sands argument or the fracking or things that tie us more with Canada will as a strong argument that maybe those are friendlier countries, et cetera, and it's a more copacetic relationship. But these kinds of things where you have tremendous external economic variables, and that's a new term I'm trying to coin here today, is that really put you at risk and vulnerability. And this whole move towards independence of sustainability really does mean something to certain people, particularly the federal government, particularly to generals who are fighting wars, basically, and some would say to protect oil interests or other U.S. interests. If we can become more sustainable, that is something that has benefit to a lot of people. And plus, the ability to be more control of your money, where it's going, would be a very big thing we could focus on. I'm surprised it's not more political because we have such a political great story to tell. So anyway, those are things that I think if you can focus on ways to agree, you do not even need to have the carbon discussion. You could just have a discussion about pollution or mercury, because all of those things exist in our existing energy infrastructure. And the last little bullet point that's pulling up for you now is, reduced pollution in our environment does mean reduced healthcare costs. Asthma, cancer, I can tell you people in this area where it's heavily cold, there's a higher cancer incidence. Mercury, COX is another term I'm kind of throwing out there. CO, carbon monoxide, or CO2, or we'll just call it COX. And anytime you can reduce less of that, the world's probably going to be a better place. And that was an inside joke. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy that. Trying to keep you alert in this webinar. But, those are things I think we can focus on ways to agree. We have a much better chance of getting more done. In 2012, I would say that, technology does help us. It's not everything we need. We need people to be more informed about these kinds of issues so that they can make better decisions. And what's great is the field that you're in, because I live it every day and I talk to people all over the place, you have so many cool things to talk about that it is, it's a no-brainer. If you can inform the decision makers, you should be able to get more things implemented. So I'm excited for you. It might depend on as far as who you're talking to when you go talk to organizations. And a lot of you may be energy managers, classic energy managers who deal with facility managers, et cetera, or maybe a facility manager. And really we have solutions and things that are part of our sales pitch, if you will, that can hit these other areas, marketing, HR, et cetera, that really do have a broader impact for that C-level person. So encourage you to reach out, go higher. If you want to see samples, we've got tons of examples of how to sell stuff. That there are, I'm not afraid to share with you our proposals. We try to whitewash them if the customer wants. In this case, we did. But you can look at real examples of how things can be presented so that the customers will see the benefits. And I invite you to take a look and download some of these things. Someone is asking if the slides are available. The slides of this presentation will not be available, but this whole recording will be available, and in a day or so you'll get a link which will allow you to download if you want to share it with anyone else. If you want to get information right away, you can download, I write for buildings.com as well as the association's journals and other places too. A lot of these articles are reproduced with permission of publication. They're all available at the PGS website, Crop Green Solutions. Just click on resources, and all this stuff is free. You can download it. It's very, very simple, and it's free. Again, you can't beat that. So you could learn about how one guy in Iowa, or not Iowa, where was he? He's in Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Got $7 million in tax breaks for his customers. You could learn about how sales taxes counted into an energy project. We had an energy project that had and you still find this in the United States, which is totally amazing to me. You can find systems that are consuming for, have 2 T12 lamps, U-tubes. If you know what that is, congratulations. If you don't, just listen to this. It uses 99 watts per fixture. You can replace that with something that uses 32 watts per fixture, a T5 system, and have the customer be happy and increase light levels 10 to 20%. Using 70% less energy. We have still lots of opportunities like that in the United States, but they maybe haven't been presented right. You could read about how, because the utility costs went up 30% in the last year in this part of the country, that reduced that payback by 2 years. The fact that the utility had all these other environmental penalties in their rate structure, which, if you haven't looked at rate structures, look at them, because going forward they're getting more complicated, they're getting more expensive. If you can translate that, that works into be another 1.5 years shaved off the payback by incorporating these other factors. So, you'll still find it, and I'm seeing people comment that New York City subway still has T12s. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, those are practically 24/7 operations. Maybe they're 18 hours a day for sure. There's just no, it's really our fault. We have not presented it to the point that a buyer could understand that and really capture the benefits. And frankly, I'm being honestly gloves off. You guys are the solution. It is absolutely dependent on us. It is doing our customers and our economy and our planet a real disservice if we do not present all the good benefits of these projects. So it's really, passionately yours. It is up to you. You've got plenty of good things to talk about. You don't even need to have a debate about carbon. I've seen there's been several debates lately. You don't even need to have the debate. You can win this on econ, on image, and on other things that, frankly, we've done a great job, and I'm proud of what we've done in the association and worldwide and all that you've done. I think it's been a fantastic year. But I don't think we can rest on our laurels here. We need to work harder. Excuse me, and it's very, very important. So with that, that's the conclusion of this, and many of you are commenting, and I appreciate that. I'm a little bit over a 30-minute goal here, but hopefully that was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions now, we have 350 people on this right now, and some of this will get this tomorrow. I'm going to try to read questions, and if I can, find your name and let you come out and ask a question. So if you want to start typing your questions, that's fine. I know we had one question come in, at least one through the email I was able to see, and I'd like to unmute Miss Julie Hodson, who's out there. Maybe, Julie, if you're there, we've got you unmuted on the system. If you want to ask your question, I'm happy to answer it.
Thank you, Eric. That presentation was terrific. My question is about jobs, and so many people in this country need jobs, and what we can understand about sort of geographically or categorically, where the jobs can come from in our energy sector, and particularly for people who are transitioning to that sector. I know that, for example, coal output, while it rose by 1/3 over the past 20 years, employment has been cut in half, in that industry. On the other hand, in the clean economy, including fuel cell and wind and PV and smart grid, we've got almost 3 million workers. That's actually greater than fossil fuel. It's greater than bioscience. It's less than IT, just to put it in perspective. AEE offers a lot of certifications that enable people to transition. AEE has a mentoring program through CWHEEL to mentor engineers. And I'm interested in what you have to say about how folks can take advantage of and contribute to the energy economy.
Hey, Julie, thanks. Great question. What I will offer, since I got your question in advance, I was able to just click just a few minutes before the webinar started to find some websites that might be helpful to some of you. If you go to energyvortex.com, and there's many websites like this, but if you go on energyvortex.com, you can find lots of jobs, as currently as yesterday, being posted about different types of energy management positions. If you have that CEM, very, very valuable. And there's other types of positions there. I filtered this for, I think, 75K and above jobs, 75K, maybe I just filtered it to 75K and 100K, but essentially you could pick whatever salary range you're interested in for those of you out there that are looking for jobs. Also, in LinkedIn, you can go to jobs in LinkedIn. If you don't know what LinkedIn is, you want to research that. You're welcome to connect with me. Every week, I can tell you I get a request for a CEM. And I'm not sure if that shows up in some type of post like Facebook, but there are people out there looking to hire CEMs, and most people on this call are CEMs. So great question. Julie, did you have any other questions?
I think, the points that you're making about the stability of the environment and politically is important for all of us to take advantage of in terms of what we can do to contribute to pushing for legislation. But I also agree that folks can, I'm in human resources, I'm in recruiting. I know that folks can really present themselves, as you say, with the benefit rather than the defensive resume. The cost-benefit analysis should really be in everyone's, CV and resume, so that they're demonstrating what they can offer very clearly. So that's one comment I could make.
Hey, thank you very much, Julie. Appreciate it very much. Well, I'm going to read some of the other questions we have here and acknowledge some of the other people that are coming out and asking questions. And I actually can read the scrolling. It's not too terrible, so I appreciate that. Some people have asked, where do you see the combined heating and power industry moving in 2012? You know, that is an industry I would say it's very interesting. To me, I would look towards the waste to energy. Because waste to energy, if you think about where waste streams are, they're basically near the people. And so if you can find ways to and there are many ways to take waste, turn it into energy, take free gas off a landfill, turn that into energy, electricity, carbon, emissions reduction benefits, et cetera, all kinds of stuff there. Another question here is asking me to speak about federal legislation that you know of is either being utilized to the benefit of the industry or being considered. There is so much federal legislation out there, I can't really comment. It would need a whole other webinar to hit that question with any kind of integrity. But there's all kinds of stuff. The federal government has to reduce energy overall use by 3% every year. They have to reduce water use by 2%. They have to increase the renewables a certain percentage every year, as well as transition to more bio-based fuels. And they also have to do net energy zero design within 20 years. So all of those things are kind of leading by example, and they have very specific deadlines on all these things. They also have to do carbon emissions reporting. So if you have federal customers that aren't doing this, they actually are mandated to do it. In fact, I know some other people asked some questions about where CEMs are required, and we're working on, I think, Don Voigt asked this question. I'm not going to try to find you in the list and pull you out. It's just too difficult. But I can tell you that Don Voigt asked this question about is there recommended language talking about what a CEM is and why it's required by certain agencies? In the Department of Energy, for example, Department of Defense, I believe as well, if you have a facility that's over 5 million square feet, they have to have a CEM on site. So that's something you might want to know if that's impacting your job, positions, et cetera. So that's kind of answering a few questions there. Someone mentioned phase change here. Tony, I'm going to try to span this out. Tony Wachowski asked, you mentioned phase change material. What do you see happening there? Yeah, this is a great new technology area, and many of you probably disappointed with this whole webinar because we didn't cover technology. There's no way we can cover all that technology. It's just much. It would take me a week, and I couldn't even do it justice. But I do know phase change materials. There's a broad definition of that. Number one is that you can have phase change materials like thermal energy storage in the basement of a building. Many buildings are going this way because it allows you to shift your loads to the evening when energy is cheaper, et cetera. But another new growth area in phase change is actually the skin of buildings or in the perimeter or shell of a building. They'll have these phase delay heat mechanisms. Basically, if the sun is heating this system, it's like a gel that is in little packets in the wall that basically absorbs that energy during the day and then delays it about 6-7 hours and releases it at night. And this can help you with reducing your heating or cooling bills by delaying and storing the energy literally. So that's a growth area as well. Other growth areas I'm going to be spending a little time on next year is in more DG type things like, for example, ground source heat pumps. To me, that makes a lot of sense. It's renewable. It's available 100% of the time, which is not the case with wind and solar. Nothing against wind and solar, but, reliability and availability is important. It is domestic jobs. If you have a ground source heat pump industry, it's domestic jobs. Plus, it is cheaper to build ground source heat pumps across cities at maybe $1 million per megawatt versus anywhere from $2 to $4 million per megawatt building more coal-fired power plants. Now, if our demand is going up by 30%, we're going to have to get the energy from somewhere. So it's either going to be from new plants or it's going to be from wind, solar, and all that stuff, which has longer paybacks, and we have to figure out ways to do that. Or we have to go negawatts, which means we got to do this ground source and other things. So all of these things are exciting, and I believe that ground source heat pumps, I'm actually calling, if you hear me push this, I think, and I've got no real financial interest. I don't own any ground source heat pump companies, but I believe it's something that is important that ground source heat pumps get the RECs, because if you're thinking about we give RECs to wind and solar, why don't we give RECs to energy coming out of the ground that we don't have to use coal to obtain? So those are things that I think are exciting. Let me read a few other questions here. Are you planning? Okay, so I'll try to read the questions I can answer, at least that I know. let's all work to get away from the language of waste. While there's denying entropy, all waste is a resource to another product service. Very good. Okay, I agree. That came from Samuel Steele. Let's see. What are the best energy-reducing applications you've discovered in travels abroad? From Joe Raya. I can't really answer that in a just generalizing. I just can say that other countries do things in a little more intelligent way, especially on the design. I can give you an example of this. Recently, I was in a Japanese car manufacturer. I was extremely impressed. They were able to switch from 8 boilers, which these are huge boilers, down to 1. And I know the woman who's gave me the tour is probably on this call, so way to go, Bethany Giordano. But I won't mention the company name, but I was impressed that I did not see, I could not find a steam leak. I did a real quick tour there, but the ground was dry, and that's just really strange to see around a boiler. Now, they've reduced that from 8 boilers to 1. Most of the time they're on 1 boiler. And just the way they've designed that, very elegant. If you go anywhere outside the United States, it's quite common. Even in extremely poor countries, you will find that most hotels have this system called card access, where you take your hotel key and you put it in the slot, and the TV and the air conditioning and lighting will not come on, at least not come on full power, until you do this. And so if you're ever traveling abroad, don't embarrass yourself by calling the front desk and saying, hey, why doesn't my stuff work? Because you need to put the key in the slot. Now, a couple of things that does is, number one, assuming they only give you 1 key, and sometimes they'll give you 2, which defeats the whole purpose. But if they give you 1 key, you'll never lose that key, because you'll put the key in the slot and you won't lose it, behind the TV or whatever. The other thing is that, the 1 key thing, really basically, you don't have to worry about turning the lights out. You take the key out when you walk the room, everything turns off within 10 seconds when you leave. And that actually has after you get used to it, that's kind of nice, because when you want to leave, you can just leave. You don't have to worry about flipping each light off individually. So there's a lot of things like that. When I check into a traditional major U.S. hotel chain, often the lights are on, the air conditioning is on before I even get into the room, which means that it was probably on for, it could be minutes to hours before I checked in, which is just wasted energy. It can be about 30%. That's about a 1.5-year payback for hotels to switch that over. So just something to think about as an example of how other countries do it better. And maybe it's just because they're not debating the climate thing, or they're more aware in some ways, but there is, I'm just acknowledging that the U.S. needs to be a little more proactive. We don't need to play. This whole reactive thing is not the way an Olympian would prepare for the Olympics. We've got to be athletes. We've got to be preparing for the battles, preparing for the challenges. We can't just sit back, because we're losing in that race. China's investing more renewable energy than we are, just as an example. So we need to get our, what in a pile and get this going. The thing about it is, we've got the great story to tell. We've got the energy efficiency. We've got the money. If you can find the financing, you've got an incredible solution. So with that, I think we're just about out of time here and what I committed to you guys. And I want to thank you all very much for attending this seminar. This is going to be recorded, and you can listen to it. And if you want to get more information, of course, GS has stuff there for you. But this will also probably be on the association's website. And it's been my honor to be your president this year. So go out and save some energy, and I wish you all the best in 2000, and happy holidays.